Good evening, everybody. I am Sherry Lindsay Chapman, Executive Director at the Wesley Shelter, and you are at our Ask an Advocate event. It's our last event in the Domestic Violence Awareness Month, our series where we have been highlighting domestic violence awareness, its impact on our community. If you've been following us this month, you have seen a lot of amazing content, a lot of amazing information. You've seen me probably far too much, but I hope you've enjoyed it. We wanted to do things a little different this year. We knew that we were still in the pandemic. We still want to be extremely careful. We didn't want to do too much stuff in person. And so because of the pandemic, we've had to learn how to do things a little differently around here. So we went to social media this year. And although it's a little different for us, it was a lot of fun. So I hope you've learned a lot. I hope you will learn a lot this evening. So please come on in, grab something to drink, grab your daughters, grab your sons, grab your husbands, your boos, all those amazing people in your life. Come on in the room. Come on, grab that plate from that dinner table. Come on in and come and join us this evening as we answer some of your questions, dispel some of the myths around domestic violence, and just have a really good conversation. Our advocates are standing by to answer any questions that you might have. They'll be able to answer questions confidentially. We hope by the end of this evening, we will dispel the myths and also provide some amazing conversations, spark some amazing conversations in your household around domestic violence. So welcome. So if you've been following us all this month, we've asked you to do something called Pass the Purple. And Pass the Purple is we've asked you to wear your purple, regardless of purple is a shirt, a dress, a tie. And we've asked you to take that picture, that selfie with someone you like, with someone maybe you don't like. But we've asked you to wear the purple and tag us on Facebook and tag us on Instagram at Wesley Shelter Inc. And we've asked you to post that beautiful picture. So at the end of this evening, we will be announcing who won those t-shirts. So I can't wait to announce those winners, and I am really excited. With me this evening is our social media consultant, Miss Bailey, and I am really excited to have her with me. Also in the room are our amazing advocates who provide services to our men, women, children every single day here at the Wesley Shelter. Also our victim services coordinator who also serves our men, women, and children, and also our victims and survivors that are at our safe house. So yeah, I'm excited. So come on in the room. Where you at? Girl, go get that drink and come on and have a sit down. Come in the room. Come get with us. Go on, grab that plate of chicken from the table and come on in. We ready to have some conversations. We want you to ask an advocate. There's no need to not know this information when we are here to serve the Wilson community, to help you understand domestic violence, to help you identify the signs and symptoms of domestic violence. So go on, grab that plate out the kitchen and come on in and have a conversation with us. Come on in, girl. Come on in, brother. Come on in.
And you can ask an advocate online through the link if you are on Facebook or YouTube. You can see it on your screen. If you're on Instagram, that link is wesleyshelter.org/DVAM. It's in our Instagram bio. You can get to it there. You can also ask on Instagram through our story highlights.
All righty, so let's get started. So we are Wesley Shelter. We are located in Wilson, North Carolina. We service both the city and the county of Wilson. However, you don't have to be a Wilson city or county resident to benefit from our services. We provide services to victims and survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. Our offices are open from 8:30 to 5 o'clock Monday through Friday. However, our line is open 7 days a week, 24/7, 365 days a year. Our services here in the office consist of our Hispanic outreach services and our Hispanic advocacy. We have legal services, we have therapy, we have our children's program, our advocates are available. We also have sexual assault response advocates who will respond to the needs of our victims at the hospital. We also have our pantry here on site for our clients who are in need of food. We have our baby room for our clients who have children who are in need of some services. We also have our safe house, which is a safe, which is a safe haven for our victims and survivors who are in need of a safe place to stay. So again, if you've been following us for the entire month, you've seen this, and you've also heard about our services. So that's a little bit about Wesley Shelter. We are always looking for volunteers. We are always looking for people to serve us in various capacities. So right now we are looking for men who will serve as sexual assault response advocates. If you can't call our offices, visit our website. That's another way that you can find out who we are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. Our website is www.wesleyshelter.org. And yeah, call us 252-291-2344. There's always someone available to speak to someone who is in need of our services.
All right.
So without further ado, we're going to be answering some questions that have come through our social media platform over the past month. Just with some of the public who they've been asking questions about domestic violence, and we want to dispel some of those myths. So you're going to hear a couple voices in the room, and those are our amazing advocates here at the Wesley Shelter. So we're going to ask the questions. We want this to be conversational. So that's why I want you to get your plate, come in the room. So you can be talking in the chat, asking our advocate questions, just in case a question came throughout the month that you don't hear us answer. So we're going to get that started. So let's see. So one of the first questions is, let's find out, what is domestic violence?
So domestic violence is a pattern of coercive behavior in which one person attempts to control another person using threats or different kinds of tactics. It's either psychological, physical, financial, technological, and the intent is to get the other person to bend to their will.
So you say it's technological. So what? Technological. So when I think of technological, you're talking about computer, tablet, phone. What does technological? What does that entail?
So it's the use of your devices to either embarrass someone, you can do it by posting pictures, you can do it by posting videos that otherwise someone would not want to get out to the public. So you can use your tablet, you can use your phone, you can use your laptop, and the intent is to embarrass the person or to prevent them from basically leaving the situation by threatening them with exposing them and putting them in compromising positions.
So that means that, and I would have to, apparently, if that happens to someone, that means that those pictures, I would have to have those pictures on my device to take them to show up in court with.
Can you rephrase the question a little
bit? So if I am dating someone and they have pictures of me on their device, do I have to show proof to the court that they have pictures of me kind of maybe going into my home, or maybe some compromising pictures of me that they're threatening me with? Do I as the victim have to have proof of those pictures?
Well, generally, the person has already either threatened to expose those photos or videos, or they have published them. And so if possible, if they publish them on a social media platform, if possible, then you want to take a screenshot, or you want to be able to take it from that platform onto your device to take into court to show the judge that, yes, it did in fact come from this person's page. It did in fact come from this person's technological device. So yes, proof is an important factor, but it is not absolutely necessary. So you can go into court and say, this person has threatened me, and they've threatened to use these photos that either I have or they have to expose me to the public. And they're doing it for whatever purpose, and it's usually a power or control dynamic to it. So yes, proof is absolutely important. It's not absolutely necessary, but the more you have, the better you can make your case.
Okay. So if I'm a client, I need services here at Wesley Shelter, and I come in, what can I expect of an advocate? Like, what is an advocate's role in my life as a client?
So I think the first thing you can expect is somebody to support you. You can expect for them to give you information about domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking. You can expect for them to listen to your story and empathize with you. You can expect compassion, and you can expect assistance. So it is case by case, depending on what the scenario is. But at the end of the day, when you become a client, you have access to all the resources that Wesley Shelter offers. So you have access to therapy. You have access to a domestic violence protective order if that's something that you need. You have access to legal representation. You have access to assistance with a safe place to stay by way of our shelter. So once you come in, you have access to all those things just by engaging with an advocate, and they will determine based on your eligibility what you need based on the story that you tell them. So you can expect somebody to empathize with you. You can expect somebody to walk you through the process step by step, and you can expect them to refer you to inside and outside agencies to provide you with assistance.
Do I have to pay anything?
So all of our services at Wesley Shelter are free. There's no charge to a client when they come in, and you can come in multiple times. On average, it takes 7 times for somebody who's a victim of domestic violence to leave their partner. And if you come back 7 or 700 times, an advocate is here to assist.
Okay.
And we would like to note that we are located in Wilson, North Carolina. So some of the information we give might be specific to North Carolina. It could apply where you are if you're from a different location.
Right.
But we are speaking specifically about Wesley Shelter Services in North Carolina, located in the U.S. If you're on Facebook or Instagram, you can see on your screen where to find support near you if you are not located locally.
And one other thing to note too is an advocate is not an attorney. An advocate collaborates with an attorney, and we have a contract that's on our staff, but we cannot provide you with legal advice. That's the one stipulation is when you come in, you can get referred to an attorney. And again, we can provide you with that representation in-house free of charge, but we cannot provide you with legal advice.
Okay. What if I don't speak English?
Well, I have a colleague who's sitting right next to me who can do the same thing that a English-speaking person can do. So she is our Spanish-speaking advocate.
Okay. So what could the non-English speaking community, specifically the Spanish speaking community, because there's a huge Spanish speaking community here in Wilson. So if Spanish is my primary language, what can I expect out of a Spanish speaking advocate when I come through the doors of Wesley Shelter?
Pues como decimos anteriormente, todos los servicios que tenemos en inglés los tenemos en español para las víctimas de abuso doméstico y abuso sexual que vienen a nuestras oficinas. Completamente toda la información está en español y le damos los servicios de abogacía, asistencia en la corte, refugio, consejería, representación legal, especialmente en español, y estamos todos de acuerdo que la persona entienda lo que se le está diciendo. Puede recibir todos los servicios completamente en español, y estamos calificados, bilingüales, para asistir a los programas en español, con mucho entrenamiento.
And if you aren't Spanish speaking, the summary of what she just said is that everything we provide at Wesley Shelter in English, we also provide that in Spanish. And your advocate is, in our case, a native Spanish speaker, very fluent, and will understand exactly what you need.
So we've seen a lot of abuse cases in the news lately, both here locally and nationally. On Sunday night, some of us had the opportunity to fellowship with Barton College for their Take Back the Night event. And during that event, they read 55 names of individuals who have been murdered in North Carolina. And one of those names was a 9-year-old victim. There were several men who were on that list. And we see a lot of different types of abuse here in the office. And sometimes we see like retaliatory type abuse situations. So can you explain, and we've seen a lot of this lately in the national news. Can you explain what reactive abuse is? And can you get in trouble for reactive abuse?
So, I mean, simply reactive abuse is if a victim who has experienced physical, sexual, verbal, psychological, or digital abuse in turn retaliates against a perpetrator, and then the perpetrator turns it back on the victim as if they are the aggressor. So that's basically what reactive abuse is. And yes, you can, again, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not providing legal advice,
right?
But you can be charged with a crime, i.e., whether it is assault, whether it is stalking, you can be charged with a crime for being a perpetrator. The challenge with that is, and I've seen a lot of instances where an abuser will antagonize a person and they will not record the initial part of the situation where they've antagonized the person. They've either hit them or they've called them names, or, they've assaulted them sexually in some sort of way. And then when the person reacts, then they will record their behavior and present it as if they were the aggressor. That's quite often what happens is they will leave out their part of the situation, and they will only bring forward to the judge or someone else the response that the person has had to that situation. And so typically when someone is in those types of situations, it is very difficult for them to prove it. It's like gaslighting the person. It's very difficult for them to prove what happened prior to that video or that recording.
Right.
And how common is gaslighting in an abusive relationship?
Oh, it is the basic tenet of it. It is to get the person to think that they're not worthy, that they don't deserve better, that they're reliant solely on an individual for their support, their care, their love, to isolate the person. It is the underlying current for domestic violence. It is to isolate, to separate, to ensure that that individual no longer has the opportunity to have a support network and or to leave the situation. So gaslighting is very, very common, and it is designed to make the person go crazy. It really is. And it is the worst part. Obviously physical wounds you can observe them. You can identify them, but it's the psychological trauma. It is the constant nagging, that wears a person down and tears at the fabric of their well-being. So,
okay. And we're getting into the heavier questions here, but before we do that, can we just let everyone know why our advocates are not on camera?
Right, absolutely. So I am very new in this position, and one of the things that is a priority of mine is ensuring that staff is always safe. And there have been several instances that we have had perpetrators come to our office. The victim has been inside of our office. Perpetrator has been outside of our office. And one of the amazing things about our advocates is that when you walk through our doors, we walk with you, as our advocates say it, every step of the way. I was about to slip up, y'all. I'm sorry. We are live. We walk with you every step of the way. So the safety of our advocates is very important. So I just had to switch up some things to protect our advocates. You know, we walk with you to appointments. We are with you in court. There have been times that our staff has had to physically drag somebody back in the office because their perpetrator has been outside. So, you know, like I told one of our colleagues at the newspaper, like, we will protect you at all cost when you are in our offices. But a part of that is also ensuring is that we are protecting one another. So we are very cognizant of our safety, because this work isn't easy work. It's hard work, and it can be dangerous work. So for those reasons, we're very conscious of our safety. We are very conscious of not breaching the anonymity of our staff, which I almost did. We are very conscious. We try to be very conscious of those things. And it works in our favor a lot of the times, because we just had a situation last week that a perpetrator did not recognize our staff in an environment, and she came in here and we were able to protect our client. And so it makes us feel good because we know we are doing the right thing. We know that we are doing the right thing by, and, you know, our attorney here on staff was able to advocate on what the right thing was to do. So I want to shift the conversation and go back into our topic at hand. But first, I want to welcome all the new persons that have joined in this evening. Thank you so much for taking your time to join us in this conversation this evening. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. If we miss anything, we will make sure that we try to answer it in this time that we have together. And also, this is a heavy topic, so please make sure you are doing something to take care of yourself during this time. Whether it is taking a deep breath, taking a sip of water, do something you need to do to reset your nervous system during this time if something that we say could be triggering for you. That is definitely not our intent. Our intent is awareness, and our intent is to inform. But thank you for being present. So a lot of times you hear people call domestic violence intimate partner violence. And so there is a stigma there is a myth or stigma that says my spouse can't be abusive to me because it's my spouse, so my spouse can't rape me. Can a spouse rape a spouse?
Yes.
Say more.
Anytime that you say no, it doesn't matter whether you've already engaged in a sexual relationship with your partner. If you tell your partner you're no longer interested in engaging, he or she must stop, because that is your right.
Okay.
Yeah, so rape is a non-consensual act. It's about control and power as well. And so, yes, whether it's your spouse or someone you dated previously or are currently in a relationship with, if you don't consent to the act, then it's rape. Obviously, there are degrees of rape, but it is absolute rape.
I think, and one of the advocates and myself, we were having this conversation earlier today about, there is this, you attach religion to marriage, you attach these societal norms to marriage, which a lot of times causes a person who is married to not come forward when it comes to domestic violence or when it comes to sexual assault. So it's good to hear that even if you are my spouse, even if you are my boyfriend, even if you are my fiance, if I say stop, it means stop. If I say no, it means no. So gonna take it a step further. It's a question that we got via social media. It says, my spouse is abusive and they want to go to counseling. Do we offer it?
So if I could go back to the
Absolutely.
the rape thing for a second. I think it's important to note as well that it's any time during the act. You know, so you can be engaging in a consensual act and then decide that you no longer want to participate. At the point in which you determine you don't want to participate and you clearly articulate that, anything past that point is rape. So I just wanted to make that clear, is it's not a sequential thing. It is anytime you're in the moment, you make a decision that you no longer want to participate, is no longer consensual, and that person is then engaging in rape. And so your follow-on question was?
Right. So one of the questions that we got via our social media platform was, my spouse is abusive and they want to go to counseling. Do we offer it?
So we offer counseling for the person who is a victim. Part of our funding, part of our grant is to not participate in any way in providing services for abusers. It is a non-starter. And so we cannot offer couples counseling because one of the people in the situation, or one of the parties in the situation, is an abuser. And so while we can refer the victim to an outside agency, we cannot provide that in-house, because our mission is to support victims. Our mission is to take care of, to support victims. And so that's outside of the scope of what we do.
Okay.
Pues para toda la comunidad latina que nos están escuchando, pues quiero decirles pues que nuestros servicios en el Westlake Shelter, pues no tenemos consejería especialmente para la persona que abusa, pero también pues podemos referirnos a otros programas locales para que puedan obtener la consejería. Damos consejería pues completamente a las víctimas, para que todos sepan cuando está pasando por una situación de abuso, especialmente sexual, que ocurre entre su esposo, pues aquí le podemos ayudar.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we're talking about couples. So in relation to DV, what's considered a couple?
So that's an interesting question. And it's because of North Carolina law. And again, I'm not an attorney, not capable of providing legal advice, nor am I capable of talking about the law in an advisory way. But currently, a couple is considered, according to the law in North Carolina, opposite sex. And so it's a tricky situation when it comes to same-sex couples. There is a statute or some case law that is attempting to change the language to say anyone in a relationship. But presently, as I know it to be true, and again, I'm not an attorney, I don't practice law, and so, you know, I'm going to use that as a disclaimer.
That is a full disclaimer
Right.
from Wesley Shelter.
But as I know it today, there is nothing in place that says a couple is anyone other than people of opposite sex.
Which is crazy, because the statistics for intimate partner violence in the LGBTQ plus community is extremely high.
Yeah, 50% of transgender, lesbian, homosexual individuals experience some sort of sexual assault in the course of their lifetime. And so, yeah, that's an extremely high number. One is too many as far as I'm concerned, but yeah, it's an extremely high number, and it's those are the people that report. And we know, right, you know, I could go down a rabbit hole about why people report and why they don't. But the reality is they experience domestic violence, they experience sexual assault, and they experience human trafficking at an extremely high number.
Yep.
And so I am prayerful and I'm hopeful that at some point the law catches up with reality.
So you kind of you took my questions out of order.
So sorry.
No problem. That's how we do around here. So why don't you think victims call the police?
I think it's cultural. I think it's comfort. I think there's a lot of reasons. And it goes to the question of, are statistics really what they are?
Right.
Our statistics tell us that Caucasian people are the highest number of people being assaulted. That's what our statistics tell us. I think there's a reason why our statistics report that way, and I think it has to do with cultural situations as it relates to African Americans, Latinos, and please don't, if I don't use the right terminology,
Please don't come for us.
right. But I think it's your comfort level with authority. It's your comfort level with reporting situations. You know, I'm an African American, and you know, we grow up in a different way. Some of the things we learn in our households are what goes on in the house stays in the house.
Yep.
Other things is, you know, you don't call the police regardless of what the situation is. You handle things internally. And I think that's a lot of the reason why our statistics are a little bit skewed. I think undocumented folks are another case of why people don't report. I think another reason why our statistics could be skewed. So I'm not arguing whether or not the statistics are wrong, but I am saying that culturally there are reasons why people don't report. Will I be believed? Is another reason why people have a hesitancy to report. I think in some cultures they're believed more than others. And so I think, you know, there are a lot of reasons why people just don't call the police. One, because then I know that it could prevent somebody from making a living. So now my ability to maintain the standard of living that I have could be affected.
Right.
I think embarrassment is a huge reason why. Shame, embarrassment. If I come from a prominent family and it's exposed that I've been a victim of domestic violence, what will the community think? So, you know, for me, that is the biggest question I think our society has to grapple with, is what message are we sending to people who experience domestic violence? The question is always asked, why don't people just leave, or why don't people just call the police? I like to question and say, well, why are people breaking the law? Because it's against the law to abuse somebody physically. It's against the law to stalk, harass somebody. And so my question to the society is not, why doesn't the person just leave? Why is somebody breaking the law? Why are people being abusive? And I think if we tackle it from a, why doesn't somebody not do the wrong thing, as opposed to blaming the person who's experiencing the trauma, I think we'd be a little bit better off. My personal opinion, not sanctioned by anybody other than my own mind, but I think we have to look at things a little bit differently.
We're going to answer a question from Facebook in just a second, but I want to ask the same question to have that response in Spanish.
Okay, pues una de las razones, como dijo mi compañera, pues culturalmente en nuestra comunidad latina, pues por experiencia trabajando con muchas sobrevivientes y víctimas, una de las razones más grandes porque a veces no llaman a la policía es por miedo. Miedo que me va a matar si me salgo, miedo que me van a quitar los niños. Otro miedo es a estar deportado, los problemas migratorios, las barreras que las víctimas de latinas se enfrentan. El lenguaje es otra de las barreras que no llaman la policía, pues A veces pues no se le asiste en el idioma español y no saben contestar las preguntas y como las estadísticas pues culturalmente son muchas razones, pero esas son las razones más importantes porque una persona no llama a la policía. Y lo repito de nuevo para las que nos están escuchando, miedo a ser deportada y barreras de lenguaje.
So we have a question that came through on Facebook, and that question is, do Wesley Shelter Service the LGBTQ plus community involved in domestic violence? And the answer is yes, a big YES. We will provide services to anyone who needs our services, to any victim and survivor that is in need of our services. We will provide those services to. All you have to do is come to our main offices, and we are located at 106 Vance Street East. And you can call our crisis line at 252-291-2344 or visit our website at www.wesleyshelter.org. So absolutely. So thank you so much, Facebook, for that question. So next question, is it possible for abusers to change?
So that's an interesting question. I think the answer is it's possible for anybody to change. I do think, though, it goes back to my previous comment, which is what is the desire to stop exerting power and control over somebody? I think that's what it boils down to is, can you unlearn the behavior that you've exhibited over time? And so I think, yes, the question to the is yes, but it's, are you willing to work that it takes to unlearn that behavior and to learn different skills and to learn different ways to communicate, to engage in relationships? So yes, I think, with enough therapy, with enough desire to be different, you can change.
I like that. I really think anybody can change, but you have to get to the root.
Sure.
The root of the problem.
You first have to be able to accept that you are an abuser.
Absolutely.
Without acceptance, if you stay in denial, the healing process can never begin.
Absolutely. Get to the root of the problem. I mean, most abusers watched it growing up, and there's this generational thing. We see it sometimes in our women that come into our safe house. We have had women who have admitted, I was here when I was a little girl. They were there with their moms, and now they are back as a client, as the primary client. So they were there with their mom, so they were the secondary client, but now they're back as the primary client with their child. So it's like at some point you got to break that cycle, but it's so much deeper than just sending somebody to a class. You got to get to the root of the problem. So absolutely.
And I'll also
agree.
chime in and say, if
Absolutely.
you're thinking about doing family therapy and you're dealing with domestic violence, you also want to consider that you want to separate the two.
Right.
I mean, you first have to start where the problem
With
starts
self.
and allow that person to be able to begin to sort through some of his or her own feelings and why they're in the position.
Absolutely.
And also with the person receiving as a victim, they also have to find a healing spot.
Right.
Marriage cannot be healed if you don't fix the product that broke it.
Right. Really good point. Okay. Better say that. Hashtag. All right. Okay. So we have two more questions. And the next one is, what is the best thing that a friend can do?
If you think.
Oh, okay. Like, what
is the best thing a friend can do if you think you have a friend experience domestic violence?
Or if you think or know.
Separate. Those are two separate questions.
If you think someone is experiencing domestic violence, I will say one thing not to do.
Okay.
Do not bash the abuser. And that's a very difficult thing to do.
Absolutely.
Because if it's a friend or a family member, you love them
Mm-hmm.
and you want the best for them.
Mm-hmm.
But that is the worst thing you could probably do. And it's because you then cut them off from free and open communication with you about what's going on in their lives. So now you further isolated them.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've bashed the person that they love,
mm-hmm.
I can no longer openly share what I'm experiencing with you. So I will say, don't do that. But aside from that, I think listen. Listen. The other thing I will say is don't agree to keep it a secret. And that's another hard thing to do. Because
even if he or she has asked you, please don't say anything.
Even if they've asked you not to say anything. And I think you have to say to them, and it's a tough thing to do, but I think you have to say to them that my first responsibility to you is to make sure that you're safe. And if I find you in an unsafe situation, regardless of whether or not you've asked me to keep it a secret, I'm obligated to talk to somebody about it. And I want to be able to afford you the opportunity to get some assistance. While I may not be trained in this area, I do know that you're in a dangerous place. And because I love you, I cannot keep a secret, something that may harm you.
Okay.
Who do you ask? Or who do you tell as a friend?
So as a friend, I would tell somebody who has a responsibility to maintain confidentiality.
Okay.
And the reason I would do that is because you've not spread it to somebody who can then spread it to someone else. You've contained the situation. So I would tell a therapist. I would tell a counselor. I would tell a hospital administrator. I would tell law enforcement. Because they have some sort of obligation to maintain confidentiality just like we do.
Right.
So that's an important point to put out. One thing that was asked earlier was, what can you expect from an advocate? You can expect confidentiality except in 3 areas. If the person gives you consent, and consent has to be in writing for a specific period of time to a specific person. You can maintain confidentiality. You can maintain confidentiality or not maintain confidentiality if somebody reports to you the abuse, neglect of a minor under 18 years of age, or an elderly person or a handicapped person. Advocates are mandated by law to report those things. And then the other thing is if you get a court order. So if a judge says you have to come in, we're compelling you to come in and testify and or to provide records. Now, we do have an attorney on staff who will fight to the death to ensure that we don't have to go in court to testify and that we don't have to give up our records in a subpoena. So if for whatever reason that happens, then our attorney will fight that battle. And 9 times out of 10, we won't have to go in and testify and we won't have to break confidentiality. But those are the only 3 ways an advocate can break confidentiality. You give consent. It's something that's mandated to report by law and or a court order. Other than that, anything you tell us, even homicide and suicide, we have to maintain confidential. So that's important. An important thing to know is when you come into our office, we're bound by confidentiality, and we're going to, even in death, we're not going to divulge anything you told us. So if something were to happen, we still won't divulge it.
Okay.
Can we approach that side from just being a friend who's not even working in the field, who's just a friend to a victim? Encourage the friend of the victim is to remain being that friend. Try to get them to associate themselves with family members whom they did have relationship with, but for some reason they were drawn from them with no explanation.
Okay.
A lot of times when you're disconnected from your family in situations of domestic violence, it's not that the family stopped loving you. It's just that they lost connection with you.
Right.
The love got deeper because you were absent, and they would love to have you back in their presence. So it's important that they understand that even though a picture has been painted before them that nobody loves and care about them, you don't know if you don't go to them.
Right.
So
Right.
as a friend, I would always encourage a friend to stay open and willing to always listen, open and be willing to answer to any call that comes in, and also try to induce that person to feel comfortable enough to at least reach out to one person that they will shut off from, if it be their parents, or uncle, cousin, grandmother, somebody, because once they establish a connection, then they'll be able to see that love that they haven't seen.
That's a good point. Because, you know, a lot of times in domestic violence situations, you know, the person is removed because of the abuser. So you're cut off from family and friends because he or she has chosen to isolate you. So that's a really good point to make, to reestablish those relationships with family and friends.
And the other thing is be willing to share your resources, whether it's your home, whether it's monetary resources,
Right.
whether it's information that you know about any organization that can assist. It's important that you're open enough to provide your resources, because oftentimes when a person leaves that environment, they're going to need a leg up. They're going to need some assistance. So yeah, be willing to provide or share your resources as well.
So this is our last question that came through via social media, and it's right on time. So this question came in light of, I don't know if everyone saw what happened to the young woman in Philadelphia on the SEPTA train about maybe a week ago now. She was sexually assaulted on the train in front of passengers, and no one stopped the sexual assault. So one of the questions that came through was, what is the best thing a bystander can do if they see abuse in public?
Activate the 911 system immediately.
Okay.
If you can talk that abuser down, you can try your best to talk them down. You want to remain calm. If someone already has control of the situation, don't try to inject over the person who has control. Remain there as a support.
For those who join, and the question was, what is the best thing a bystander can do if they see abuse in public? And this is in relation to a recent event in Philadelphia.
Yes, a woman was sexually assaulted on a SEPTA train, train full of people. No one stopped it. I believe the report said that the train had took her to over 24 stops, and the sexual assault occurred. People were on the train videotaping it, but no one stopped it.
And you know, that's the biggest problem now. We get so caught up with publicizing stuff,
everything on social media,
but we don't think about the person. We violating that person when we're publishing something without their consent. And we're also putting them at a greater risk. I mean, the perpetrator could have very well, after finished sexually assaulting her, he could have killed her and then killed everybody on the train. So people, when you're videoing something, please always take in context that, hey, your safety is just as well out there as the person who's being assaulted.
Right.
And this is another case where public video laws vary from state to state. In North Carolina, we're in North Carolina, they vary from state to state.
Right.
The time it takes to activate their device to record could have saved her life.
And there are buttons on, so I'm from DC, and on our train system in DC, there are red buttons on the cars that you can push to alert the driver of the train. And it was the train operator who happened to look up and see what was going on, and he called the police. But by the time he called the police, he was already in full assault mode. It was over 24 stops that the train had rode through, and no one stopped it. No one stopped it. And it sent chills through my body when I read it. And, you know, just how could something like this happen? And I know a lot of times we have bystanders that'll call our crisis line and say, hey, I saw this woman in the parking lot in her car crying. She is bruised up. I think she needs your service. And she left the house with nothing, and she'll pass the phone to that woman. And we've been able to assist her that way. So I am grateful for those moments where a bystander has just been leaving the grocery store to go to her car, and done the right thing.
So can I just go back to one thing what a friend can do?
Absolutely.
And it's related to safety planning. I want to make sure we get some information out on safety planning, because you don't want people to be trying to think through important things when they're experiencing a traumatic situation. And so I would offer for friends who suspect and or know that domestic violence is occurring is to get your friend to think through how they would escape from the home, to gather up all of their important documentation, whether it's social security cards, birth certificates, car titles, leases, all of those things, and have them in a secure location that if they have to leave in a hurry, they can have them leave some clothes and or money at your home. So if they have to leave with nothing, they have at least a change of clothes, some toiletries, a little bit of money to start over with.
Right.
So those are some of the things in terms of safety planning. Again, it takes 7 times for somebody to leave an abuser. And usually it's in a hurry. So if they have all that documentation, if they have a change of clothes, if they have a little bit of money, it's helpful in their escape. So as a friend, I would say, hey, let's think through where these documents are. Let's think through how you're going to keep your keys, your purse, your cell phone charged, and everything in a place where you can grab it if you need to exit. So safety planning is a huge part of what a friend can do if they suspect or know that somebody's experiencing domestic violence. Because if they have to leave quickly, they may not be able to think through those things under crisis.
And you can find safety planning resources on our website, wesleyshelter.org. And you can also find an even more extensive safety plan on the website that's on your screen for Facebook and YouTube watchers.
And another important thing, turn off location services if you're fleeing.
And that's on all devices, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so that's really, really important. I think that's something that we underscore a lot, location on your phones and location on your tablets, because I know a lot of times we have to deal with that with individuals who come into our offices. So, and a lot of people don't know how to do that. So maybe one day we can record a little tutorial on how to turn off the location on your phones and your devices.
And if you're in an abusive situation, if you have access to your own vehicle and you're allowed to leave your abuser from time to time, it makes good to make sure that you can scan your vehicle and be noticeable with different devices that may be attached, because sometimes they do put trackers on the vehicles.
And use cash, not credit cards or your bank cards or things like that, because those things can be tracked based on where you are using them. So, but again, all of that information, I think we put it in what did you say? You put it again? About the
safety planning. It's on our website. You can use the link that's on the screen right now. Instagram, that link is in our bio. So feel free to use that, obviously, at any time. There is a safety exit button on our website as well, so it will completely close the website. But there's a lot to consider when talking about tech and how you can look back at your browsing history, locations, etc. So with that being said, if you think of a question or if you want us to talk more about something, of course, ask it. If you think of it later, the link that's on the screen will be remaining open, and we can always do another live or a post or anything to answer those questions.
Sounds good to me, Miss Bailey.
We have a game.
So we are going to lighten the mood a little bit. Again, if you need to take a small little break to reset your nervous system. I know this information has been heavy. Our intent is not to trigger anyone. Our intent is not to evoke any negative feelings, but we really think it's important that you are aware and you have the information that you need to share with your family and friends. So we're going to take some deep breaths and maybe drink some sips of water, but we're going to play a little game.
And you are welcome to play along in the comments or in your head if you don't want to comment.
But we can't see it if it's in the head.
No, but they'll know.
Okay.
The reason I say that is actually because this is a public live stream. So if they are not a Facebook user, they can still see it.
Okay.
So you can play along
Play it in your
regardless.
head.
So here's our game.
Hey, music.
Yeah. So this game is called Fact or Cap. If you are not part of the younger generation, cap means it's a lie. So we are going to determine whether these statements are true or false. They are common statements around domestic violence. I'm going to read them, and if it's cap, well, you'll see.
And we would appreciate if our advocates would elaborate on even if it's fact or if it's cap. Because what we don't want to be an organization that puts out some false information or capped information. And if it is legit, it'll be Wesley Shelter approved.
All right. So first fact or cap. Women aged 20 to 24 are at the greatest risk of becoming domestic violence victims. Fact or cap? Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that is 18 to 24. 18 to 24 is the common age for domestic violence victims. The post common age. 18.
So that's a lot of college.
That's a lot of college age.
So you get it, cap.
All right.
It's delayed over there.
All right. Domestic violence is rare or unusual. What do we got?
So 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men will experience some form of domestic violence throughout their lifetime.
Hopefully you heard that stat. Can you repeat the stat one more time?
So 1 in 4 women, 1 in 7 men will experience domestic violence in their lifetime.
So we have someone playing along on Facebook with her caps.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we see you.
And they got them both correct. All right. Both parties are usually responsible in domestic violence situations. What we got, advocates?
So it looks like we have some dissenting opinions over here. So
All right.
we had one who said,
I would say they're both. Repeat the question. That's the first get it.
Or repeat that one more time. Both parties are usually responsible in domestic violence situations.
I would say that's not true. I don't feel like they're both responsible because first and foremost, if someone is just picking on you and making you feel worse and worse for those reasons, I don't think that's fair. How can you be responsible?
And that goes back to the reactive abuse I think we talked about earlier.
And it could also be looking like you are victim blaming. It's just you want to
do it in Spanish? I don't know.
oh, she has another cap.
Wow.
We have a lot of hats down here.
All right, see.
That's actually my favorite hat. Very good. I like that. So yes, our advocates called cap on both parties usually being responsible in a domestic violence situation. Young boys who witness domestic violence are more likely to abuse their future partners. More likely to abuse their future partners. Compared to young boys who do not witness domestic violence.
I would say that. Especially if they haven't learned differently. If it's just a repetitive cycle for them and they never see anything different, then they can't help but do it because they don't.
I think we're going to be
Not
talking
that
about
there is
this
an
one.
excuse for it.
Yeah.
It's still wrong to do.
I think we'll be talking about this one more later.
Yep, I think
So,
so too. So you want to
We'll
put
come
this
back
one
to that
aside?
one. Okay. All right. Domestic violence only happens to women who are poor, uneducated, or dependent.
Definitely cap.
Actually,
Yeah.
it's like that's 2 caps.
Right.
Yeah.
Double cap.
Don't
Yeah.
forget that.
It's a kid's hat. I thought I'd have to take it.
Domestic violence can happen to anyone. It has no name to it. It has no color to it. It has no feeling to it. It just happens. So
Violencia doméstica puede ocurrir en cualquier tipo de género, no importa raza, color y cómo es la persona. Violencia doméstica es violencia doméstica.
Yeah. So this one was multiple cap going on here.
Right.
Um,
We all should have had our caps.
yeah. It doesn't just happen to women. It doesn't just happen to people who are poor, uneducated, or dependent. It can happen to anybody at any time.
Yep.
All right. Domestic violence can cause homelessness.
Fact.
Fact. That is a Wesley Shelter proof.
Absolutely. That's why we have our safe house.
What is the safe house?
The safe house is a safe and confidential space where women who are or have experienced domestic violence can come and live as a result of homelessness.
what about our men?
So for our men, we will house them in a hotel. So our safe house is just for women and their children, although young boys under the age of 18 can live in our safe house. However, if we had any male victims, we will put them in a hotel. Or one of our community partners has agreed to house our men, and we will provide the services.
Sorry. Our Instagram got cut off, so we were just joining back in there.
Sorry, guys.
All right. People who commit intimate partner violence are violent in most of their relationships.
So
People who commit intimate partner violence are violent in most of their relationships. So
With their parents and their siblings, friends.
right, yeah. They're just an all-around aggressive person.
I would kind of say it's a twofold.
Okay, say more.
Because they may have a connection with certain family members that they don't need to show that aggression to. And then sometimes they get in situations where they feel threatened, and those behaviors that are hidden within tend to come to the forefront as a protective mechanism for them. Not that they're taking responsibility for the behavior being wrong. It just comes out because that's how it was driven to come out.
I know where this question came from, and that is that there was a recent case, a national case, where the likely abuser came across to everyone else as the absolute nicest person.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to quantify most, because 9 times out of 10, folks are considered sometimes pillars of the community.
Mhm.
They hold a job,
Mhm.
they engage with the public. And one of the reasons why abuse is able to be hidden is because on the surface, everything looks fine. On the surface, nobody can detect that somebody is suffering in silence. So yeah, I can't go along with the most in that statement.
Could be fact, could be cap, varies by individual situation.
Sure.
Mhm.
All right. I think this is going to be another similar situation here. Children exposed to domestic violence are more likely to have health problems.
Yeah, I think it depends on how you define health. If you're looking at from a medical standpoint, you know, shots, physicals, those kinds of things, maybe not. But if you're looking at a psychological, emotional well-being perspective, perhaps.
Right.
So I think it depends.
And then also with adverse childhood experiences, which one of the predisposing factors of adverse childhood experiences is domestic violence.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of research that says that if a child is exposed to an incarcerated parent, divorce, domestic home, they have a higher chance of being obese, experiencing hypertension and diabetes and ADHD and all these different cancers. So it varies, but we also know that there is the social emotional problems at school and all these other things. So it's so broad and right, anxiety, it's so broad what it does to that body when that child is at home. This morning, myself and one of the advocates was talking to a community partner, and they shared with us that they have a client whose child was writing a suicide letter. Like, that's problematic because it's something they are witnessing at home that is causing it. And we do know that there's something going on at home, but that right there, all of that is catalyst for those adverse childhood experiences, which in turn will then show up to all of these social emotional problems and all these health issues with that child. Which is why it's so important for school systems to get to the root of the problem instead of immediately always wanting to put a child on medication when something is going on with the child. Let's find out what's going on with that sweet baby at home before you immediately say, well, this child is ADHD. It's so much bigger than that. So yeah, that's multiple soapbox folks.
Yeah, and I think too, one of the things to point out is trauma compounds. So if a child experiences domestic violence, and then somewhere in adolescence and adulthood, maybe they had a car accident, or maybe some other traumatic event happens. It's a compounding situation.
Yep.
And so it's always best to address things as early as possible to prevent the layering of trauma and the layering of issues later on in life as it relates to something that happened as a child.
Okay.
And I think when children are in an abusive setting, I think the abuser of the victim, I think the victim, when a lot of times you have children tend to cling more to the victim. We have to train or get our victims to start thinking, to stop telling the children everything is okay, you're safe. I mean, because we're isolating the child.
Mm-hmm.
And the child is going to believe what the victim says because that's who they're close to, and they're going to trust that until another explosion happens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that child doesn't know anything but to listen to who I'm close to.
Right.
If you tell me I'm safe, then I'm safe even though I don't feel safe.
Well, even though what I see around me
Right.
doesn't look safe.
And then, a lot of times the children disconnect and they stop communicating. And that's when you find that they're contemplating on taking their lives or who knows, they may even go up against the abuser and kill the abuser.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we just have to, and I know it's a broken thought pattern, and you can't blame the victim because they don't know no better. But I wish domestic violence was something that we could talk about on the news all the time,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
it doesn't just happen in one month.
Mhm. It's all day,
It's all the
every
time.
day. It's like we are 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365
From
days a
all
year.
walks of life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there are two good books that are really out if you want to know more on how trauma shows up in children. It's The Deepest Well by Dr. Nadine Burke Harris. It's a really, really good book. And The Body Keeps the Score. I am not going to say the author of The Body Keeps the Score because I will jack his name all the way up. But what I will do is I will put pictures of both of the books on our social media and put the authors, but it's The Deepest Well by Dr. Nadine Burke Harris. It's an awesome book, and The Body Keeps the Score. But both of those books, it talks about how Nadine Burke Harris really talks about how the how the ACEs, the adverse childhood experiences, how adverse childhood experiences, how it shows up. Now, I caution you, once you read the book, you're going to then want to do your own ACEs score. Don't do it. Because then you will take yourself down a rabbit hole. But it's a really, really good book. And then it's The Body Keeps the Score. Really, really good book. But it's just how trauma, and even though it talks about children, it also helps you understand our clients we see every day and how how a lot of stuff that our clients do, a lot of it's a band-aid for deeper issues that our clients are experiencing. So two really good books. I'll put the information. Oh, thanks for putting the information. And I'll get the author names and we'll put it on social media. But two really, really, really good books. So last question in CAP. Oh, two questions.
All right. Most domestic violence incidents are never reported.
We can't hear you.
I would say that.
That is Wesley Shelter approved.
Es verdadero. Muchos de los incidentes de violencia doméstica en nuestra comunidad no son reportados. Contestando la pregunta, si la mayoría de los casos de violencia doméstica están reportados, mi respuesta es no.
And that's Wesley Shelter.
No, perdón, mi respuesta es sí. Estamos de acuerdo con todas.
That one was approved in English and Spanish.
Verdadero o falso.
Anything to add? On our last one.
Last factor CAP.
All right.
Ready?
Ready.
Okay.
Domestic violence is a women's issue.
That's that.
You want to pick a good one?
I just like this first one.
Hang on, we have a good one.
Oh.
Here you go.
No, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Here you go. It's Halloween.
Definitely CAP. 1 in 4 women, 1 in 7 men.
Yes.
Definitely
And we are actually, can I take it off? We're actually going to talk about this one a little bit more because
So I've been here at Wesley Shelter now almost 2 years. I came in December 2019, but this year has been a different year. It's not just because of COVID, but we have been seeing an increase in our male victims and survivors. And I am happy to say that we've been ready. We have still provided services internally for our male victims and survivors. regardless if it has been our main office services or our safe house services. And as a new ED, as an organization, and just as a Wesley Shelter employee, period, that makes me really proud. But what we are seeing in our community is that the community's response is not the same as ours. So what we are going to do is we're coming out of November and we're gonna usher in, no, because this is October. So we're gonna usher out of October and usher into November, and we're gonna focus on our men. We're going to focus on our male victims and survivors, and we're going to focus on their needs, and we're going to focus on bringing the community, the Wilson community, closer to the needs of our male victims and survivors, because they need services on the same caliber as we give our female survivors. We will always be present to our women. We will always be present to our children. We will always be present to our Spanish-speaking community, but we still need to be present to our men. So in November, we are challenging the community to be present with us. We will be doing a lot on social media the month of November for our men, but we are also bringing the community in with us. So we're going to have one in-person event, and that is going to be on Sunday, November 21st. So we're going to have a milkgate. I know, bear with me for a second. So what I discovered coming to North Carolina is that y'all are real serious about your North Carolina football. I'm a DC girl, so need I say more? Anyway, we are going to bring men to our parking lot, and we're going to have a good old-fashioned tailgate. But we're going to call it a mailgate. So we want you to bring your sons, bring your brothers, bring your husbands, bring your boyfriends. We want you to bring them out, because for the entire month, we're also going to be talking about toxic masculinity and how toxic masculinity perpetuates domestic violence and sexual assault, but also how toxic masculinity causes men not to come forward when it comes to domestic violence and when it comes to sexual assault. So we're going to start at, 12 o'clock? 12:30. We're going to start right before the game starts with a good old opening from me. And then we're going to have a guest speaker at halftime. We'll have the games on. We'll have food trucks. We'll have community out spreading the good news, especially organizations that do provide services for men. We'll have some games for the children, but we want you to come out and show your support for our male victims and survivors, because they deserve the same support services that our other survivors that we help. And our staff here have been doing an amazing job in responding to our men the same way they respond to our women. And that could be hard because, especially when that's not the norm. But staff here has made it their norm. They are responding the same way. They are giving the same caliber of services to men as they would give to women. And I am excited about it. Did I miss anything? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Okay, that's good. That's good. So, advocates, do you want to add anything?
We are wrapping up.
Okay, this has been awesome. You guys gave really, really good information. If you don't know, we are all girl band. I'm just saying. Even though we are looking for men to show up and be present to our male victims, we are looking for men to serve as sexual assault response advocates. So if you are interested, please call our offices and we will get you a volunteer application, and we will pass you on to the person who will educate you and do what needs to be done for you to become a sexual assault response advocate. If you know someone who is a man in your life and needs our services, if he is a victim, please pass him our way. There is no judgment here. You will be treated with grace. You will be treated with no judgment. You will be met with empathy, and you will be met with care. So please come to our offices if you need our services. This has been an awesome month. Thank you so much for everything, all your good content that you've helped us put out this month. Thank you so much to the community for welcoming me to Wilson and for just looking at all of our good information that we have put on social media this evening. Thank you to our advocates who stayed an hour and almost 2 hours after their time to do this Facebook, Instagram live with us. Thank you for everyone who showed up and attended. And oh, who won the t-shirt?
Oh. Truist.
Okay, Truist. The money people. Okay. Well, congratulations to Truist. You are the winners of our fabulous Wesley Shelter t-shirt. So if you look on either Instagram or Facebook, you will see the best purple t-shirt ever designed. Ever. It's like Tom Ford level ever. It's awful. But you'll see it. So thank you so much for everyone who came out tonight to watch us over dinner, after work. Thank you again to our advocates. Thank you to the Wilson community. Thank you for everyone who supports us, United Way, all of our funders. Thank you so much. And if there were any questions that you still wanted answered, please send them to us. Again, our website is www.wesleyshelter.org. Our phone number is 252-291-2344. There is always a friendly voice on the opposite end ready to assist. If you'd like to see us more, answering more questions about issues surrounding domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking, please let us know. You can DM us on either Instagram or Facebook. And have a great evening, everyone. Do something good for yourselves. Bye.